right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today, but let's start out with some powerlifting stories because there's some really interesting stuff going on in powerlifting right now. So let's start out talking with the bench press, specifically Danial Zamani. This guy has been making a lot of noise in powerlifting lately with some of the crazy raw bench press attempts that he's been making and successfully making in his Instagram videos. So Danial recently bench pressed 352.5 kgs, which is about 777 pounds. Now, the current raw bench press world record held by Julius Maddox is 782 pounds, 355 kgs. So just a couple of kgs more than Danial Zamani's recent raw bench press. Again, this is in training, not in competition, that Danial is hitting these bench presses. Now, the interesting thing apart about this, number one, is the proximity that Danial is to Julius. Number two, the fact that Julius will be attempting 800 at the end of August. At the end of this month, he'll be attempting to break his own record by a significant margin. And number three, we just saw Julius did that video with Larry Wheels where he failed 790 just a couple of weeks before this upcoming meet. Now, in addition to that, there's one more interesting thing I want to discuss here. According to CT Fletcher just posted this on his Instagram page. CT Fletcher has arranged a showdown, verbal confirmation from both Julius Maddox and Danial Zamani. There will be a bench press battle between the two, I guess to try to break the record again. Now, according to CT's post here, this is going to be in January of next year, January 2022. So that'll be an interesting matchup, and it will be even more interesting to see what both of these guys are able to achieve in training or in actual competition prior to January, because that's significantly far away. If Julius does hit 800 at the end of August, that will make the gap significantly greater between him and Danial. If Danial just hit 777 and Julius hits 800 at the end of this month, that will put a 23-pound, roughly 23-pound gap between them, which is a very substantial gap when you're talking about bench press numbers in the 700s. But 2.5 kgs is a much closer gap. So if Julius misses the 800 and doesn't break his own record with anything more than 782, then we go into January with neither of them competing at anything else prior to that. I think that will be a really, really close showdown, especially considering how fast it seems Danial has been improving on the bench press. And it's crazy because it seemed like Julius was miles ahead of everybody else when he was shattering these records. I mean, he shattered the raw bench press world record, and it seemed like Julius was just a freak of nature and nobody would ever touch him. And this guy comes out of nowhere with bench presses really, really close to what Julius is doing. So it'll be interesting, and it does look like it's close. But let me know your predictions in the comment section down below. Who do you think will break the record first? Julius Irregular Strength Maddox or Danial Zamani? Let me know in the comments below. Now, also kind of in powerlifting news, kind of a tangent with strength sports, it has been confirmed that half Thor and Devon Larrat will be fighting in replacement of Eddie versus Thor on September 18th this year, 2021. The same fight card with Avril Mathy versus Steffi Cohen and Jacob Hepner versus Josh Bridges, which was the original undercard for Eddie versus Thor. Now, when I first saw this, I assumed it was going to be just an arm wrestling match between Thor and Devon Larrat, because Devon Larrat is an arm wrestler. Thor has dabbled in arm wrestling that I know of. Devon hasn't really been training for boxing, but Thor does say in the caption here, and it's on, finally a fight confirmed for September 18th. Now, I know some people call arm wrestling an arm fight. He says, Devon Larrat, good luck, and you'll need it this time around. But then he goes on to say, see you soon, Mariusz. So maybe he will still be fighting Mariusz Pudzianowski, 5-time World's Strongest Man champion, at some point in the future. Now, Mariusz has dabbled a lot more with fighting, a lot more with MMA for a lot longer time than half Thor has been dabbling with boxing. So that would be an interesting match because Marius has really kind of transformed his body from World's Strongest Man winner and competitor to a fighter and an athlete. And the process of that transformation has been like over a decade that Marius has been doing that. So Marius had been hinting there would be a fight with him and Thor. We hadn't really seen much from Thor about it, but he does reference it here. So maybe that will be the real replacement for Eddie versus Thor, will be Thor versus Marius. And that would be a very, very interesting fight. That would be a fight that I would buy. And I would even go as far to say I think most people that were going to buy Eddie versus Thor that are strongman fans would buy Thor versus Marius. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about this recent development with the Eddie Hall-Thor fight and kind of these updates that have been made. All right, now let's get back into some bodybuilding news here. Let's start out talking about Dennis Wolf. So Dennis Wolf, one of my favorite bodybuilders, a bodybuilder that I grew up watching when I was a kid, and probably the same is true for a lot of you guys that are in the similar age bracket as me. Now, Dennis has been gone for a while. He had that pretty severe injury which kept him out of competition. He made a comeback to the 2018 Arnold Classic where he took a disappointing, for him I would assume, 12th place. Probably not as high as he was expecting to place when he made that comeback. He was significantly downsized, but his conditioning looked good. And ever since that Arnold Classic placing, we haven't seen Dennis Wolf on a pro bodybuilding stage. But Dennis, even though a lot of you guys know, a lot of you guys have really probably seen if you follow Dennis, he's been downsizing continuously ever since that 2018 Arnold Classic. And he looks a lot healthier now. He looks a lot this looks more like how he's supposed to look. Because if you remember, Dennis walking around back at his peak was like, he looked like he was inflated with air, like a big balloon of muscle. Dennis was massive. He was bigger than really someone probably should have been. But now I think he looks healthy, and I think we should kind of give props where props are due, and give a bodybuilder props when they do walk away from the sport, but they're able to walk away, downsize their physique, and live a much, much healthier lifestyle. And I think we should compliment that. We should encourage that. We shouldn't say, oh, Dennis Wolf looks small. We shouldn't say we want to see Dennis Wolf come back and be bigger. We should encourage these guys being able to retire from the sport, downsizing their physiques, and living a healthier lifestyle. I just noticed he's got a wolf tattoo on his shoulder. I think that's pretty cool, actually. But yeah, Dennis Wolf physique update. The first time we've really seen a physique update from Dennis since he's walked away from the stage, and since he's kind of made this conscious decision to downsize and apparently seemingly retire. So shout out to Dennis Wolf. Very cool stuff. Now, also in bodybuilding news, a bodybuilder we haven't really talked much about during this Olympia season, these weeks leading up to the Olympia, and that would be Regan Grimes. Regan Grimes, one of the men's open bodybuilders, kind of famous for how aesthetic he is in comparison. He's a younger guy. He's had a lot of ups and downs in the sport. He's had a lot of ups in the sense that he has been at a body weight above 300 pounds when he was over there in Oxygen Gym in Kuwait. And then at the most recent Olympia that he competed at, I would say the biggest issue for him was that he was undersized, and that's what led him to placing where he placed. Where he placed 15th, by the way, in the 2020 Mr. Olympia. A lot of people, including myself, were expecting him to place significantly higher than that. But like I said, I think the main issue there was size. He was in decent shape, but I think overall he just needed to be bigger. And keep in mind, in the past, he had that Oxygen Gym stint where he was putting on a ton of size. He had switched to classic physique in the past, then he had to go back up to men's bodybuilding. All these ups and downs. Regan is still trying to figure it out. This is the latest physique update from Regan, and I really hope we see an improved, larger, more muscular version of Regan, because he is already qualified for the Olympia. It's the only thing that he has to focus on. Him and James Hollingshead share that in common. The only thing they had to focus on was the Olympia, and hopefully that serves as an advantage to Regan in terms of taking the time to make the improvements that he needs to his physique to place better than hopefully 15th place at this year's Olympia. Now, next up in bodybuilding news, a post-Spain physique update from Roelly Winklaar. And he says, and so we continue, head down, grind up, ready for the next couple of weeks, and focused on all to come. We keep pushing forward. Now, I believe what's next for Roelly is the Arnold Classic in September 25th. That'll be an interesting show for Roelly, and it'll be a make-or-break moment for him after this second-place finish in Spain to Nathan D'Asha. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think this is the end of the era of Roelly? Do you think that era has already passed? Or do you think Roelly can still improve even more going into the Arnold Classic? Because I firmly believe that Roelly significantly improved between Chicago and Spain. And he's got an even longer gap between Spain and the Arnold to tighten up, fill out, come in full, or whatever it is he thinks he needs to do better. Do you think the era is over, or do you think Chicago was just a miscalculation and he can continue to get back to where he needs to be for the major shows like the Arnold, like the Olympia, which he is now qualified for through that second place Spain placing? All right, now next up in the news, I think you guys will really enjoy this one. So the NPC European Instagram account messaged me. This is the Instagram account for the Spain show that Roelly and Nathan just competed at. Now, we talked a lot about the Spain show this weekend. One of the things in particular we discussed was the lighting. The lighting being very, very bad from a standpoint of the live stream, from a standpoint of watching the bodybuilders, that super bright backdrop, the blue lights, the lights on the bodybuilders weren't bright enough, etc., etc. And you guys in the comments reflected that as well, that you guys were very unhappy with the lighting that they brought to that show. And it makes me really happy to let you guys know that your opinions were heard, and my opinion was heard. The opinion of the fans was actually listened to by the promoters of this show. So I got this message. It says, "Hi, Nick. This is Jonathan Morial writing in the name of the organization of the Europa Pro. I've also been the photographer of the show who has taken care of NPC News Online submissions. We'd like to thank you for your videos on YouTube, spreading the word of the Europa Pro, a new show to the industry that hopefully we will be able to let grow to one of the main bodybuilding events in the world, maintaining the prestige in the European scenery. We'd also like to thank you for your feedback regarding lighting and the live stream. As a photographer, I can confirm you are 100% right about this, and something we have to look into for future Spanish shows like the upcoming Big Man Weekend Pro in November." So we went on to have a further conversation about this, and essentially the gist of it is they hear you guys, and they are looking at different ways to fix the lighting. So they've heard the fans' concern, and they are fixing the problem. I think this is awesome. It's awesome that we could give feedback like that, and they could respond in a positive way, because let's be honest, it's a pretty harsh feedback. I don't think we went easy on them about the lighting. And they came back and said, look, we hear you. Not only do we hear you, but you're right, and not only are you right, but we're going to fix it. So I think we need to give props to the promoters of the Europa Spain, and we will be watching next year to see what the lighting looks like at next year's show. And I expect it's going to be better, because that's basically what they said they're going to do. Now, the final story, this is a big one, and this is a controversial one. Now, I'm not going to give any sort of opinion on this, because I feel like this issue is a bit political. It's a politicized issue, and I'm not going to say my opinion one way or the other on this. But this does affect bodybuilding news. Redcon1 pulls out from supporting any future Arnold Classic competitions, is what they say in this video. But the part about it that made me want to cover it in this video was a comment that Aaron made in the video saying, if you want to see the Redcon athletes at the Arnold Classic this year, you won't see them or me at this Arnold or future Arnold Classics. Now, Redcon1, their athletes include a lot of guys that have won and competed in the Arnold Classic, including Cedric McMillan, who is on the current competitor list for this year's Arnold Classic. Kai Green, of course, is a former Arnold Classic champion. But then you've got James Hollingshead, pro bodybuilder in the open. A lot of people would probably like to see him at the Arnold or in the Arnold UK, which they say they also won't support. George Peterson, Alex Combernero, those Blessing Awodabu. These are names that, according to this video, you're not going to see at the Arnold, any international Arnolds, or future Arnold Classics, because support from Redcon1 has been pulled out. So I'm going to roll that full video for you guys. And the important thing that I want you guys to have in the comment section below is an honest discussion about this topic and about the decision made by Redcon1 here. So I want to see your honest opinions in the comment section down below. Without further ado, here is the clip.
Screw your freedom. and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
After much deliberation, we have decided at Redcon1 to no longer sponsor the Arnold Classic or any of the Arnold events around the world, and also not attend the Arnold events. And this is a very difficult decision because me personally and everybody at Redcon1 has always loved Arnold. Since I was 13 years old, I remember Arnold and Predator doing this to tell everybody to stop, and me looking at that with my dad and saying, that's cool. That's what I want to be. I want to be just like this guy. And over the years, I've overlooked a lot of stuff. You probably too, have overlooked a lot of stuff with Arnold where we say, well, that's just Arnold, right? And, you know, because we love him so much, we just keep overlooking and overlooking and overlooking. Well, unfortunately, his most recent comments.
And not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
So when somebody says screw your freedom, I can't, and Redcon1 can't in good conscience continue to spend, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars sponsoring that person or a show with a name, you know, honoring that person. So there's no way that I can continue, Redcon1 can continue in good conscience supporting the Arnold Classic for the future. And I really wish that wasn't the case. And this is certainly not a partisan issue. I'm not saying right, left, or whatever. America's great because there's freedoms. Arnold is free to say the things he wants to say, right? He may say things I totally disagree with. Somebody else may say things that I find disgusting, but that's what makes America great. You have the ability to say it, I have the ability to disagree, and I'm voting with the Redcon1 dollars that I don't want to be any part of that. And that's what makes America great. The ability to choose to wear a mask, to choose to get a vaccine, to choose or not to choose, and that's okay. If you do, that's great. If you don't, that's great. But when you say screw your freedoms or you're a schmuck or a moron or anything else because you disagree with somebody, I'm not for canceling anybody. Don't cancel Arnold, but don't support him if you're me, right? If you like it, go there. I won't be there, unfortunately. So if you're looking to see Kai Green and the rest of the Redcon1 athletes and myself, unfortunately, you won't. So that's all I had to say about that, and thank you.
So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. This video, as always, is sponsored by the like button. It's free to hit. It helps out the channel a lot. So if you click that like button, click the bell notification button. Let me know that you are enjoying the channel, enjoying the videos. It's the freest, easiest, cheapest way to do so. Just hit that like button. It'll feed us into the algorithm really well. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.